Welcome back, everybody, to the Dynasty Dingers podcast. Today is Monday, March 19th, and we have breaking news. Doc is with me as always. I am Matt. Doc, I want you to kick it off because we have been anticipating this signing all offseason. Here we are, about a week away from opening day, and he's finally signed. So, what do we got?
Blake Snell has signed with the San Francisco Giants. Oh, I picked so many people out. What was the end? San Francisco Giants, 2-year
What do we
contract.
have on details? Yeah, do we
We
have
got details because
any annual salary?
uh, we have 2-year contract
Okay.
and
I'm-
it's going for $62 million total. So that's
Okay. So, we
31 a
got the
year.
30.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got the
which is
30.
like a good
I
middle
mean,
ground for what he
that's
wanted. For
fantastic,
what he wanted.
honestly. That's the best park factor I think he could have gotten.
Yeah.
That's where I had wanted him to go all offseason. I think those of you that already have done redraft drafts and got Snell, this is a massive win. What do you think?
I mean, I wish I had Blake Snell. I love
Yeah.
that park. I think it's great for him
Yeah.
because he's a mistake-prone guy, and that's one that's like the most forgiving park. Really huge upgrades for both him and Dylan Cease. Funny enough, they were both being kind of comp to each other. I wouldn't say it's a
Yep.
huge upgrade for Snell, actually. I mean, San Diego is literally also at Pitcher's Park, but uh, you know, these two guys are a bit wild. They're going to be staying in Pitcher's Park, staying in the Pitcher Park for Snell and getting to one for Cease. So no, that's exciting. The Giants, I don't know, man. It's getting like a little. They need to really overhaul their hitting, but it's almost getting to a point where I know when the Texas Rangers started spending a bunch of money on like DeGrom and Scherzer and things like that,
Hmm.
guys like that. I know that my first instinct was, what? It's
Well,
almost hard, no, because it's almost hard to remember, but people were like, the Rangers suck. They're not going to
yeah.
win. It seems
Yeah,
so
Seager and
foreign.
Semien, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're like,
Yeah.
what are they doing? Yeah, yeah, it was Seeker and Simmons. Yeah.
Yeah, they kicked it off, and then now, having the good fortune of having Wyatt Langford be there for them at that pick, having that draft class and that pick hit the lottery as they did. Obviously coming off a World Series championship, so we're talking about continued dominance, if not continued contention, at least for the Rangers. But I think the little difference we have, at least with the Giants, is we need to see them develop their hitting prospects. We just haven't been able to see the track record
But there's going to
of them
be
really
one.
being
He's
able
coming
to.
in soon. I'm talking over you, and you know who he is.
Do you want to do a little foreshadowing here, or do you want to just drop it on us?
I just don't know how close he is, but it's Bryce Eldridge, baby. Bryce
Yep.
Eldridge. I mean, I have to keep doing this. We gotta get amateur. This is our third podcast, everyone, and it's my third camera we've used so far. Anyway,
We're working
we're
on it.
working on it. Anyway, most of y'all are probably listening on audio anyway, so I'm gonna tell you about Bryce Eldridge. He's 6'7", 223 pounds. As a teenager, he just got drafted, and they've decided to actually go move him off as a promising two-way player. He's a second round draft grade as a pitcher. But they decided to put him, and they were actually going to have him in the outfield, and then all of a sudden, they just said, you know what, you're first base. They decided to make their prized possession a first base prospect. What that screams to me is, you are the slugger of our future, because he came in his pro debut and just lit the world on fire. This is not a 6'7", Cruz kind of guy like O'Neal Cruz, where
Yeah.
he has to refine his approach. No, the approach looks good. The swing looks good. There's not a lot of holes in it for a big guy like that. So that's kind of scary, and he looks like a man. He's got a big beard. It's very funny. So, yeah, honestly, he might. I'm just wondering what else. They have to bring in another bat. Is what I'm trying to get to here, because Eldridge is he's at least next year. He's not. You're not going to see him this year. He's way too young,
Yeah.
way too raw.
Yeah. Yeah, I have him comped out. I think 90th percentile projection. I think Matt Olson's profile with even a slightly better average is possible. That park, of course, thinking about 40 to 45 home runs is going to be a bit of a challenge for any lefty. But I think if there's anyone that can do it, it is Eldridge with I think the plus raw power that he will only continue to grow into. You've been very excited about him all off season, and I haven't yet been able to confirm the news that they moved him off. I know that you're confident in that. I even did a little research this past week looking for any organizational quotes. So if you have anything, shoot that out on Twitter for us, just because that's a big piece that I actually wrote about this past week, where I was like, I need to know that he is dedicated to first base, because I think once that happens, I think Doc 2025 might be realistic because
Mhm.
again, the approach is there. He's young coming out of high school, but the bat may be ready for the majors sooner than later.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe me, I checked it a few times. I believe it came from a beat
I
writer,
believe no, I believe you. I believe you.
beat writer because I was so excited to see this two-way. I wanted American Otani so bad, but my consolation is the fact that they're like, you know what, you scrap learning a new defensive position. Even we're gonna just chuck you at first. You just swing that bat, baby. And if they're willing to do that with such, they could have such versatility, such a meal ticket for fans to come and see this American Otani. They threw out all. They're saying no, we don't want that. We actually are happy enough with our Matt Olson Jr. So it's exciting.
For we're
Mhm.
gonna have to wait for Caglione, aren't we?
Yeah, something like that. And I would add that it's almost like just to bounce off what you said about the park. It's almost like with Seattle too, where
Yeah.
you need a Montez. You need these guys with
Yeah.
the big power so they can actually get out of the park. Remember that Barry Bonds guy? He seemed to have a knack for doing it.
Well, and a little fun Twitter debate with the with Bonds going on this week, but you have to almost have that prodigious power, right? And I think Matt Olson has that power too, where it would have projected really well in San Francisco. But that big body, as you talked about, Lazaro Montes, Bryce Eldridge, like these guys are going to put on shows for a number of years. I would say I'm projecting them to have probably Pete Alonso level power. They're prospects, so they could turn into nothing, but that's the kind of power that you need to see it putting up big numbers in San Francisco. And San Francisco desperately needs that kind of a bat. They have to get a bat like that. They haven't had one since Barry Bonds.
Man, it's so cool. Just everyone knows at home. We had a completely different, loose intro plan. And
Oh
I
yeah.
just as Matt's here trying to tell me important things, I'm like clicking around on Twitter and I'm like, oh man, shut up. He's like, what? It's very rude. And I said, no, no, no,
um,
it's shut up. Blake Snell has signed with the Giants. We're busting it out, baby. This is so awesome. So now you're welcome, listeners.
Yeah, this is well, it's exciting. I mean, think about it. It is March 19th, if I am correct. March 18th. I'm sorry, everybody. It is Monday, March 18th. And we still have a very large free agent who just signs. Like that doesn't often happen. Of course, enter into the fold Scott Boris, and chaos will ensue. But this is great because we heard what just 2, 3 days ago that the Houston Astros were in play, and that it was more than likely that Snell was going to go there. And hours later, we heard that the Astros were going to balk at his asking price. Here we are on Monday. The Giants have solidified Snell, and now you have a rotation led by Snell, Webb, with the emerging Kyle Harrison as well. I think this is a nice rotation now. Lee in the outfield is, being that big addition that should help with OBP as well as a leadoff figure in the lineup, but they still have to compete against the Dodgers. And I think the only downside for Snell is he now gets to go against the Padres lineup as opposed to against the Giants lineup. I think that's a slight loss, but the
Hmm.
park is still enough of a slight gain for me to be happy about this.
Yeah. Man, this is fun. What a fun off. Yeah, people like to complain, right? Oh, come on, sign, sign. I'm like, you know what, dude? I don't really care. I care for fantasy, like making the pick, but I don't think this is like an NFL running back or what, I don't think anyone really figured that him or Montgomery are going to sit out this year, and I'm pretty
I
confident
think
Montgomery
Snell can
will sign.
be I think Snell can be a top 10 in San Francisco, whereas if he signed in New York, I have grave concerns about maybe only top 30. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it depends on your format, right? So
Yeah, that's
a lot of
true.
people still play with wins. I actually like wins. I think it's kind of cool
Okay.
because it gives you some strategy actually. So people would say no. I like to do sorry, just to be clear, I like quality starts and wins, both.
Okay.
That's my favorite. Just like I like average and OBP. I'm a crazy person. My leagues are fun.
Okay.
So here's the deal with the wins. It actually makes you strategize, you know, having a good team around you, right?
Yeah.
And that does because frankly, how do they measure Cy Youngs and MVPs? They don't usually give it to the guys who are racking up great stats on shoddy teams, right? It's they usually do actually factor in wins. They're old school. So and a lot of default leagues, they're still they're by wins. So yeah, New York would have been better for wins in my opinion. But the Giants, yeah, I have such a hard time imagining their bats getting them enough. But this pitching staff is going to make it very interesting. There's going to be some fun pitching duels out in San Fran this year.
I'm just bringing up the numbers to cross reference your wins comment because I don't think there's a better season to reference with kind of the old heads of baseball and the transition that we've gone about. Yep, it was. So 2016, Justin Verlander, in my opinion, should have won Cy Young. Kate Upton as well thinks that Justin Verlander should have won Cy Young if anyone cares. But Rick Porcello won. He was 22-4 with a 3.15 ERA, 223 innings while putting up 189 strikeouts. Verlander, just off loose memory, had a better season across the board outside of wins and did not win the award. But that just goes to show you, even dating back to 2016, 8 years ago, voters were still pushing that win threshold. And that was for Porcello, that was 5 wins over the second greatest highest number of wins, which was 2018 was 17 for him. So you're right. Wins do matter. And, I think we are getting to a point where they are mattering less and less. But you're right with strategy, like drafting Astros,
Hmm.
drafting Dodgers. Those things help in leagues, even if the guy has a 3.5 ERA, because you're going to get more wins. All right, well, let's get back on track
Yeah.
here. That was some great fun news for us to kind of break for our listeners. Those of you that are listening tomorrow morning and are baseball fans, I hope will already know the news of Blake Snell, but we have another big deal that you kind of threw in there. That was the trade that happened midweek. We saw the White Sox and the Padres make a deal, sending Dylan Cease to the Padres, and Drew Thorpe is on the move yet again, going back to Chicago with 2 other prospects and a reliever. What were your thoughts of this deal, and what do you think of the return for the White Sox?
Okay, so I like Drew Thorpe better than Dylan Cease.
Mm.
Pause. Accept it as truth. Accept it with an A as truth, the opposite of false. So Dylan Cease, he's a wild card man. It's just a classic case of thrower versus pitcher, in my opinion. So we have this guy who's just throwing crazy stuff, but I do someone I forget, I think his name was Sean Evans. I gotta look that up. There's a good follow on Twitter. I really like to recommend him if I can get his name up here. Anyway,
Well, as you look for him, I think I'm going to toss in the other names here while you're pulling it up. We also saw Zavala going over to the White Sox as well. Zavala for me falls in my top 100. I want to say 70 to 100, so in that 30 range. It's going to be a toolsy 19-year-old outfielder, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Stole over 20 bases last year, hit around 250. It still has a lot of development to go. This will be his age 19 season, so you can project for him to be in the minor leagues for a number of seasons before you really start to get antsy with that profile. Iriarte, did I say that right, Doc?
that
Another
sounds
pitcher
really
going back.
good. It sounds authentic.
Iriarte.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it.
I said
Pretty.
in our pre-pod discussion, we didn't even, Matt here was nice enough. He didn't say anything. Dude, I said the words Domingo German. I might have thrown in a German. Like that's so funny. It's like a redneck trying to sound fancy. Yeah, Domingo German. For the folks at home, how's that pronounced?
Well, Domingo German.
There we go.
I was at the game where he was supposed to pitch in New York, and they came out afterwards that he had shown up, late to the ballpark. Presumably, there were some, late night activities that had gone on, and then he ended up being suspended from the team. So Johnny Brito actually got the start. But the funny thing about upsetting the fans is our friends cleared out the entire section because we unfortunately just got into a political debate in the city of New York at Yankee Stadium, and our group is polarizing. So we were having this big conversation, all stemming from Domingo German's presumed activity, because we all kind of assumed based off he had been struggling with, what was happening.
Hmm.
That was one hell of a game to be in, and if you were in our section or around us, I'm very sorry that you had to deal with us.
Who are you rooting for in the game? What team?
It was Yankees, Blue Jays. It didn't really, it didn't matter because at that point the Yankees had already been out of it. It was just after the trade deadline. Um, and we were just there to essentially go to the Yankee game to see Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
But I don't want to say either team was a postseason contender. It was a great game though. I mean, I've never seen an entire stadium root for a team knowing that, hey, the season's kind of over. The Judge injury hurt. It was also, I want to say, the week after Judge came back from the toe. So, all in all, though, Yankee Stadium, if you haven't been, absolute must go.
Yeah. So here's the bad news. It's a double L. I can't remember that guy's name in the slightest. Twitter's not giving me any hope. And two, I don't even remember what I was going to credit him about. Something about Dylan Cease,
Mm,
everyone at home. But I mean, Dylan Cease overall, this is a guy who, you know, eh, he might give you, yes, this is it. And it might not even been the guy I thought it was. Oh, baby, this is the experience you're getting. Listen to this passion. We're leaving this all in for you. Here's the deal. Here's a question for you folks at home and for Matt, for that
mm.
matter. If you have a game 7 for the World Series and you can pick a pitcher, are you going to trust Dylan Cease with that game? Because he's supposed to be an ace.
Okay, but am I given options here? Is it like I get to choose Drew Thorpe or Dylan Cease, or is it like Domingo Germán, Drew
Well,
Thorpe,
let,
and
let me
Dylan
let me give you
Cease?
a for fantasy. So Dylan Cease or Jordan Montgomery?
I'm gonna take Cease.
Really?
I, I'm I'm much higher on Cease than you are. I understand the skepticism. I think it's completely fair, but the strikeouts, as you said, what's the league context, right? Like if it's points and I can hemorrhage ERA, okay, whatever. Like hopefully Machado and Tatis rip some homers and I'm good. But like I still think the strikeout upside is better than Montgomery.
Do you are you talking fantasy? Or are you talking real baseball?
Fantasy, no, fantasy, fantasy. I
Okay,
think Montgomery's a great floor. He's a safe pitcher to have in your
let's talk.
rotation.
Let's talk literally game 7 World Series real life baseball for a second, because it does play it
Okay,
does bleed over.
okay. That's probably I'm probably banking on Montgomery to give me 3 or 4 quality solid innings. Where like worst case scenario, I can throw my bullpen out there. Whereas Cease, like the game could be over by the second inning. We've seen that, right? We've seen 8, 9 run blowups for him.
Yeah, that's my thing, right? And frankly, that
Yeah,
does spill over, I think, into fantasy. Whereas, quality starts. I like to use them. I like to use them in my league. And if he's not going to
fair.
get 6 innings, that's a problem. In the World Series, yeah, that is a problem if I can't bank on my quote unquote ace to get me those, this 5, 6, 7 innings I'd like to have. Um, yeah, man, like True Thorpe could just. Here's the thing, guys. Obviously, I'm not completely insane. The guy's never thrown a major league inning other than if you want to call spring training major league, which I wouldn't. Um, he's an interesting fella. He's a pitcher. He throws like low 90s heat, but he's got a filthy changeup and beautiful control. And I just can't help but wonder, I would like to talk about this. I mean, as a whole, Matt, if you have any more thoughts on the Cease trade, I think the White Sox overall got enough assets because I think Zavala is somebody. He's not my favorite prospect, but he's somebody, and I think he could be somebody in the major leagues. And I think Ayarte, I don't have enough knowledge on the guy, but there's so much hype about him. Frankly,
Hmm.
I got Thorpe blinders on, and I'm just like, yeah, dude, you won. And I don't think they can mess him up that bad, frankly, the White Sox are not that good at developing talent. But with Drew Thorpe, most of his development's already done. He was in New York, he was in San Diego. He's ready to roll. He's ready to rock. He did 140 innings in the minors last year. One of my favorite statistics from a pitching
Yep.
prospect is durability. That's sorry, is a durability indicator of innings. And so Drew Thorpe, this guy's got a big pitch mix. He goes deep into games. Go watch him. He's got a stash, an authority stash. Shoulders like the Grand Canyon. He's the pitching Brock Wilken. This guy's got something to him. It's really weird that he doesn't throw that hard. But frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. If he's a guy who maybe never gets TJ because he's not trying to whip that. Who knows? Maybe he could reach back and get it. He doesn't want it. I don't know. But I guess I'll ask you this because I posted something today from Chris Bassett where he was saying that
I
if
saw this interview.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I love, and
Yeah.
I'm all about this. I've actually been targeting. I can't help but deny it. I love filth. I see Jackson Jobe throwing 102. It gets me going. But I do factor that in. If Jackson Jobe is he's not as high on my list as other lists because I'm like, dude, that's an arm ready to blow up if it's not natural, and maybe it is for him. But for most human beings, I don't think it is, and I think there's something to be said for a guy who can go like a Greg Maddux. There's not too many Greg Maddoxes out there, but a guy who can work in that vein. I think there's something to be said for that, especially in a dynasty format where you don't really want to lose years of your prospect's career.
Well, and I think as you were talking, the name that comes to mind for me is Zach Gallen. When Zach Gallen came up with Miami, it was really the put away changeup, right? Well, what is it for Thorpe? It's the put away changeup. The question marks with Gallen were okay, he doesn't have high velo, high velocity flame, and will that hold up? Comes up to Miami, has a little bit of success, struggles a little bit, and then we see him flip for Jazz Chisholm. And here we are coming off 2023, where Gallen's a top 5, top 10 starting pitcher in fantasy drafts, right? I think the ceiling for Thorpe is probably right there. And that's a damn good player. And that's a player I will take every single time over Dylan Cease because of the floor that a Zach Gallen provides. Now you mix in the ballpark factor for San Diego, right? And you're probably limiting home runs as well. But if you're also throwing 91, 92, Ronald Acuna's 118 exit velo probably drops to 114. Maybe it's a flyout on the track. Not to say that, that can't happen every single time where, you're limiting velocity based off what's coming off the bat. But I think there's absolutely something to be said with that. And those that are listening that are curious, Chris Bassett came out today on a it was either on a publication podcast, it was an interview, and just referenced the point that Major League Baseball made a mistake, in his opinion, by choosing to go with stuff over stats. And I thought that was the great takeaway from the interview was, he was just referencing stats and players that had put up better stats that were non-tendered and were simply spring training invites in comparison to a guy that did not perform very well, but still throws 97 miles an hour. And Thorpe is definitely more in the Zach Gallen bin, the Greg Maddux bin. I think, I'm going to throw this name out there. No one wants to hear it, but Zach Davies bin. Um, then some of the other guys. Now, again, the floor is probably Zach Davies. The ceiling is probably Zach Gallen, but Greg Maddux was obviously the greatest of our lifetime.
So gotta I yeah I got a quick. Well, I'll say one last thing on that is that just in case you all wanted to know about fantasy impact here, Chicago White Sox have a bit of a hitter's park, so that is a downside
Yep.
for Thorpe, and so it's an understated hitter's park. And then Cease, yeah, we already went over. He's getting an upgrade, but I got a little bit of news. I don't think we want to spend any real time on it because it's not that. Jackson Chorio has officially made the Milwaukee Brewers opening day roster. And I don't think that's a shock to anyone who knew that he got paid a lot of money. So that's
You
something
know,
that just came in. It just came in though. It's official now.
Doc, I'm a Brewers fan by geographical birth location and fandom, and heartache. I'm biased, and I'm very, 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 very eager and concerned to see what happens with Churio. I love everything I've seen. He's very young. I don't know that he's ready, and I'm really curious to see if this promotion, or him being named on the opening day team, will stunt his development at all. What do you think of that?
I watched him play the spring breakout, man. He's fun to watch. He's very fast. I don't know what to expect of him this year. I did a crazy thing. And just folks, just so we'll plug it probably at the end, but Matt Morris here has his top 101 prospects, not just the rank, but analysis going live tomorrow on Scout the Stat Line. And I had my second best tweet ever, other than my actual list. I got broke 50K, bro. I broke
I love this.
50K. Do you see this? There's a redraft. I did a redraft prospects list. I did it. It's supposed to be a five, a top five fun names. That's what I went into it with on Sunday. And
I loved your names though, because they were probably the same names I would have had, and that's why we do this show together. But dude, have you seen the massive jumps Victor Scott is making in some of the like redrafts? He's almost at top 200 overall on ESPN. How insane is
yeah,
that?
so anyone who hasn't seen my semi-infamous tweet, did we break? We broke 50. Good.
Break down the names real
I
quick.
went Langford one. This is for purely redraft or 2024 purposes. If you're like a keeper or dynasty and you're running, I was going to do this year. For this year only, Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, and I have Victor Scott number three over Churio and Holiday. The other guys there are just run down real quick: Keith, Mayo, Pauly, Thorpe, Manzardo, and I can talk about all different ones there, but you can just go look it up. It's on Scout the Stat Line. Honestly, Victor Scott over Cheerio and Holiday is pretty insane, even to me, the guy who wrote it. Like I could be taking crazy pills, but here's my deal. Here's my deal. Chorio, I don't know if I believe in his ratios this year. I thought of this today. I think he might be Anthony Volpe from last year.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
As a floor. As a floor?
Yeah.
So you like he was useful. It was like a weird like hurt. It was like get
Yeah.
give and take kind of thing. I think it might be actually. I probably should have had Holiday at 4 if I clear. I actually have faith in Holiday's ratios. I don't know how much power we see this year, but that lineup will boost him. So it's kind of foolish. I think I should if I had to redo that. Like I said, it just morphed in an afternoon. It was a very half-assed list. I feel kind of bad for like just dropping it, but honestly, it's a good list.
But that's what Twitter's for,
It's
right?
a,
It
it's
is literally meant to look back on regret our decisions.
and then post live on the website with full analysis. Um,
Yeah.
it's like I
Yeah.
did full analysis in one afternoon, folks. It's like, yo, you give and you take, you get and you get. I don't know, but more of the story is we're getting on Chorio here. Yeah, I think the floor is still the floor. It sounds crazy. We're talking about rookie, but like the floor is like a 15-20, 15-25 probably. That's the way I saw him running the spring breakout.
Yeah, his speed is they've given him close to 80 grade. I don't think any publication has actually slapped the 80 on Churio, but I mean Victor Scott's our speed guy, right,
Hmm.
of the show. But Churio's supposed to have speed that I don't know that we'll even be able to gauge properly until we see him in Milwaukee on first base, take second, and we'll be like, okay, yeah, he's just a tick below Victor, or oh my gosh, they're equal. And if that's the case, we're talking about two unbelievable NL Central like starting outfielders for the next decade. That would get me very excited.
Speaking of which, I think, man, yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's an exciting time for baseball, with these incentives to bring the kids up early. I think we got to get into our show here with our predictions.
We do.
I don't
We're
think
and we're gonna we're gonna make some adjustments as well to our outline. We are, as I do not currently have the browser up. We're 30 minutes in. So today is our predictions episode. Doc and I are going to knock out AL, NL, MVP, Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year. And then we are going to talk a little bit at the end of the show about just overall draft profile for redraft for Dynasty, like what are our approaches. And, I think this is very subjective to obviously our perspective, but we want to share that with you. And Doc, real quick, before we actually get into predictions, we've got two more big things I just want us to touch on very
sure.
briefly. Garrett Cole's hurt. Yuri Perez's question mark. These have massive ramifications for redraft as well as dynasty. Just give me your overall thoughts quickly on both players and where you feel their 2024s are going to go.
I don't like drafting injured pitchers. Period. So it really hurt me because I've been drafting Yuri and getting like values and steals and TGFBI, the big industry league, and I just drafted him in an auction, like I think it was that day or the day before. Yeah, man, I wouldn't touch these guys. Even if they come back, it's like you're playing, you're gambling. It'd have to be a really great value. And Cole went in our auction for like 10, like more money than, it's always subjective. It's on the budget you have, but he went for more than I would have ever dreamed of bidding on a guy who may
Mhm.
not be pitching this year. Hey guys, you know what this makes me really feel? It makes you want to do in drafts, and draft season's basically it's over now. Just like keep waiting on pitchers. And frankly, as this draft season went on, I've been waiting more and more because I'm just so terrified. These guys are just, it's so sad. It's sad for baseball. I don't like talking about it too much. I pray, we're just for both Cole and Yuri to heal up. And we don't have the news on Yuri yet, but I don't see how it can be good.
Yeah,
The good
I
thing,
don't see how it could be good.
a good thing would be 1 to 2 months.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and yeah, 1 to 2 months, and we're in the same boat with Cole. At least with Cole, we found that through the imaging, there wasn't a UCL detected tear. It is the nerve that is inflamed. I'm in the same boat as you, though. There's a certain thresh mark that I will, or benchmark that I'm okay with taking Cole in redraft, but it's got to be a value. And to kind of, before we move on, I think the starting pitching position has really turned into the running back position in fantasy football. You're just terrified of the UCL or the ACL because it can cripple the entire structure that you've built if you choose to go pitching strong to start the year. And maybe you took Cole, maybe you banked on Yuri to be your number 2 or number 3, which would be crazy, but I'm sure people have done it. And here you are a week before the season starts, and things have changed. But all right, Doc, time for the fun stuff. Now, we will definitely reshare these moments if we were right. If we're wrong, you'll probably never hear from us
Put
on
it
these
down the
predictions again. So,
memory hole. Put it down the memory hole.
Doc, we got AL NL MVP to kick us off. Who are you looking for AL MVP?
Okay, so I did not. So you had a couple of these awards predictions that I
Now,
did.
listen. You can pick the same guy.
No, no, no,
I
no,
know
no.
we haven't covered this yet, but you don't have to.
Listen, there's a couple guys that you said that I wouldn't that I wanted, and I was like, dang, you already picked my guy. This wasn't it. You picked a guy who I won't unveil yet, but my guy's Soto for AL MVP because he's gonna have to be. I think. I don't know, man. I got Judge in at least one league, couple leagues, yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I think he's a tough guy, so he'll play through it as much as he can. But there's stuff going on with Judge. I don't know, dude. Get a better trainer. I don't know. It seems like his whole body's just breaking down early, which is very. Once again, like, it's depressing. I don't get any joy in this. But I hope that Judge is able to battle through. If not, though, Soto is getting a shot, in New York to be a Yankee. And I think it's a lot of fun. I'm a huge OBP league guy, and this guy's the OBP overlord. And I've heard the stat geeks, we're stat geeks in our own way, but I've heard the Uber geeks try to be like, well, technically Soto won't get the short porch. It doesn't actually. I'm like, listen, buddy, short porch is short porch. Like this is an opportunity for Soto to hit over 40 home runs here. Um, you just got to yank them. And so I think that, especially if Judge is hampered, I think that Juan Soto might be able to carry or at least, do a lot of the heavy lifting with the New York Yankees. And we all know that the media loves themselves some coastal big franchise, big market names. So all Juan Soto has to do is be really darn good and he'll win the AL MVP.
Yeah, and coming into a contract season, right?
Hmm.
Soto, again, another Boris client. Pete Alonso, right there in New York, also contract season, Boris client as well. You really look for these guys to come out and perform really well in those contract seasons. I love your Soto pick. He had been a MVP candidate and probably the front runner for AL for me up until the Cole injury, just because you kind of talked about it with wins and how the voters vote.
Hmm.
I think if the Yankees do not win the AL East, it will just slightly hurt Soto. And then the second piece is I agree with you, but I think he needs Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge just to be behind him in that lineup because Soto needs to see fastballs. Soto needs to be able to sit on his pitches within the zone. And if we can even get 125 games out of Aaron Judge, I think that will be enough for Soto to absolutely create havoc in that AL East. But I'm staying AL East. I'm going Vladdy. I think 2021 has had a lot of conversation based around it with minor league parks as well as launch angle. And can Vladdy ever get back to that? Vladdy, if you look at the underlying numbers, is one of the unluckiest major league players. Still has really, really strong exit velocity. Does need to work on that launch angle. I wanted to pick Soto, but again, I prefaced why I didn't. So my second piece would be Vladdy. I think we see a really, really good 2024. And as he gets closer to his own contract season, starts to build his resume for a big time contract at first base.
I saw some spring stats from Vladdy. His
What do you got?
his launch angles are like negative 27 or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't tell me that.
yeah. I think it was. I want to give a shout out Chris Clegg. I think the Toolshed boys were ripping on Vladdy a little bit. Hey, I like Vladdy actually as a fantasy value per se, just because he's got this like. I think that his values dropped down quite a bit, but as the AL MVP, I foresee just actually kind of jump on what you said. I foresee the AL East going through some strange times. Baltimore Orioles have this thing locked down for a bit. I think Yankees will find a way to come in second, and the Rays, dude, the Rays will always be there, second, third. They're not gonna be last.
Yeah, they will always be
They'll never
there.
be
Yep.
last. So who's the last? It's the race to the bottom to me. This year, I think it's a race to the bottom for Boston and the Blue Jays in the AL East. Tough. I used to live in Canada, and I was always like, dude, this division sucks. That was before Baltimore was good, and the Blue Jays just, I think they had a window and they missed it. It's a tough spot right now.
Yeah, and I think that window is definitely closing because they're going to have to pay Vlad, they're going to have to pay Bo, and with the inner workings of that rotation, right? Bringing in Barrios and him being up and down and inconsistent. Gosman, just a couple of weeks ago we talked about that injury that he was looking at. Manoa not even throwing now and completely losing form. So there's definitely
What the heck
concerns,
happened
but
there, man? What happened there? Like that's like we haven't. They need to be. We need to make a documentary on the downfall of Alek Manoah. I saw his numbers the other day from his great season. So it's like the Titanic. It's you were the chosen one.
well, I watched a lot of Alek Manoa in 2022, and he had a really great way of dominating mound presence. Really holding on to the anticipation for the hitter without throwing 99 miles an hour. Big bodied guy still had a fastball at 93, 94, 95 that could get on you and make you look silly. And then you take away the pitch clock. And I think that's really the best narrative that I've seen going around, where it threw off his timing,
But
just
he's still
overall
bad. But
took
he's
him out
still
of his
bad.
element.
But he's still
No,
bad.
I know he's still bad, but he may just be a guy that can never recover. Maybe there was something about his mound presence that when the pitch clock was enforced took away. I don't know. We're just throwing darts at a wall at this point. The entire industry is, right? Because
Mm-mm.
the Blue Jays have said nothing. Outside of there's not a significant injury, they have said nothing, as opposed to coming out and saying he just can't figure out the rhythm.
Yeah.
That would be way easier. Way easier.
Just for the record, I'm rooting for the guy. He's old school. He's exactly
Same.
what I'm talking about, right? I love a mound presence. I love this, like, he's fought in the past. No, pitchers shouldn't be coming out of games. We should be doing complete games as much as we can. So hopefully there's a redemption arc down the line for Manoa. Just to add on to what you said, Gausman is not going to be available for opening day. So
Yep.
again, dude, and that was an optimistic one. They're like, oh, technically there's nothing wrong with him. I said shoulder and
Yeah.
pitcher. I will leave the room now unless you're giving him to me like 5 rounds later. And even then.
Yeah. Well, and older pitcher, right? Gosman finally coming into form just a couple of years ago, and like he's no spring chicken. So that bounce back is going to take a little while, and we've seen that with Cole so far this spring. As you start to get a little bit older, as we're in our 30s, like you start to feel things, and
Dude, why are you saying that to me?
there
I'm
could be
just looking.
concerns.
I just had to go check because he felt young, and I saw he was born in 1991, the year of my birth. I'm getting old.
Well, we're young for human age. We
Shit.
are we are getting to the end of our career in baseball years.
Yeah, actually, the
We
Rockies finally stopped calling me to pitch. It's so crazy. I'm just like I never.
Hey, I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't turn that down. A couple million, nice ballpark.
I
I know
haven't.
they feed their
I have a
players.
family, man. I got a reputation to live down. I can't be a Rockies pitcher.
Yeah, the 7
Apologies
ERA.
to Rockies fans. That was too good to pass up.
That was. All
Okay.
right, Doc. So let's get into AL and NL. Excuse me, NL MVPs. And we will come back to Cy Young in a little bit here. So who are you picking for your NL MVP?
All right. Just for you and for the listeners at home, I think that I gotta wrap this up a little bit quicker, but I love Bryce Harper. I think Bryce Harper would be a great candidate here, kind of a dark horse. It's easy to pick Acuna or something like that, but that's the fun in that. Bryce Harper is a perennial MVP. He's still only, I think he's 32, maybe 31.
Yep.
I think he might be 31 still. Am I crazy? Um,
Around there. Yeah, he's
yeah,
right around our age.
yeah. So I think he's got like one of those late birthdays. Anyway, Bryce Harper with the Philadelphia Phillies, he's the heart and soul of that franchise, which is he'd be the heart and soul of any franchise he was with. But I think it's so funny whether it's mock draft or real draft. I see other people's mocks where he goes 16, 17, 18. I'm like, please, why can't this be me? Then I get to a draft and I'm like 12, 13, 14, and he's always gone at like 10 or 11.
Gone.
I don't get it. Anyway, Bryce Harper, go get him. Bounce back's on the way. He's playing first now. First base ain't what it used to be in fantasy, by the way. And frankly, Bryce Harper might give you like up to 20 stolen bases, which is also unusual for first base. And we haven't even seen him really touch his power as much. Like every time I think he hit 42 home runs one season. Let me check that one out. But I believe he did that. And every time he's been on pace to like match that or break that, he's got hurt, which it is something that's almost built in with his high intensity play. Yeah, he got 42 back in 2015. But every time he's been on pace for that, something's happened. Like you can look at 2021, and he got 35, but he played 141 games. Dude, those extra 20 games, could have been.
That was an MVP season for him, though, right? 2021 was
He
MVP.
literally won it. Yeah, there we go. But like
Yeah,
he could have, but from a fantasy perspective, think
for sure.
shout out to Baseball Reference. You know, good place, good place to raise a family.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
And
what a
so
great reference for us.
anyway, Bryce Harper would be my pick, especially just because if here's the thing, MVP is most valuable player. Without Bryce Harper, I don't know where the Philadelphia Phillies are with them. Well, sorry, with him. I mean, they're a World Series contender.
Well, yeah, and we have another big Philadelphia Philly name that we're going to throw us here in a little bit. I'm picking Betts. Love the Harper take. I'm following right in suit with you. It's easy to pick Acuna, just like it would have been easy to pick Otani every year that he was healthy in the AL. This might be the last year that the NL has a real opportunity because now Otani will be coming, over to the NL and presumably pitching again, I would guess, as soon as next year. So I look for Betts to really put together a similar profile to 2023. We're talking about Otani being in the lineup, so you're going to have even more counting stats, presumably, than last year, or at least matching those. And I think Betts on a traditional year when Acuna doesn't do something that's incredibly historic, like steal 70 and hit 40, had a chance at winning MVP last year. So Mookie Betts, I think this is probably the last year in his career he's really going to have a shot because, again, Otani's got to be the favorite every year after this year.
I got a question for you because I know
What do you got?
I know you didn't want Acuna. I didn't know you didn't want Otani. What made you pick Mookie Betts over Freddie Freeman?
I think when you look at the projected concept of him taking shortstop, them winning the division, Otani not being able to pitch, just DHing, I think it has to go to Betts for the all around numbers, for the ability to provide value, right? The most valuable player. And it's like you got a gold glove right fielder that has played second base on and off for the last couple of years and is now taking the shortstop role in his 30s to help solidify the middle of the infield for the presumed NL favorite Dodgers. I don't know much more valuable than that. And he's a top 5 bat in the NL. So he was an easy choice, but the problem is he's going to lose votes to Freeman. He's going to lose votes to Otani, right? Like he's got to have
Hmm.
such a fantastic year to overcome those lost votes to his teammates. And that's going to always be an issue on any of these super teams.
I think you raised a great point with the defense. Especially with the way the voters vote.
Yeah.
So no, you're winning me with that one, man. With second base.
Shortstop is just,
I mean, he was. I mean,
yeah, it's,
well, he went from outfield to second base, and now he's going to second base to
yeah.
shortstop on like a hey dude, on like a hey dude, we need you. Like
Yeah.
that's basically
Yeah. You're
it.
the best choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. We have a
dang it.
shortstop.
We got this other guy.
Well,
He can't seem to throw the ball anymore. So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah. So you're in. Congratulations. Well, yeah, Mookie Betts, and as Robert said, it's indefinitely, I guess. So there's question, right? The Dodgers could acquire a shortstop. Things could change. Mookie could slide back to second. He could slide back to right. But again, value here. All right, let's speed it along here. We have AL. Let's see here. Am I looking at this right? No, NL MVP, NL Cy Young, NL Cy Young. What do you have for me with the NL Cy Young prediction?
I'm not a Phillies fan, I swear to God, but Zach Wheeler,
You sound
Zach
like it tonight.
Zach Wheeler. Here's the thing, man. I actually got a heartbreak with Zach Wheeler. So, here's the deal with him. He was a top prospect. If you're old enough to remember, he was a top prospect, and I had him in the early days, and I wrote him, and then he had TJ, and he came back from TJ, and he wasn't the same for like a couple of years, and then he started, suddenly like he was like a bouncing waiver wires guy in his prime, quote unquote. I think it was 27, 28 years old, something like that, and he wasn't good anymore. And then he had like a big comeback season, and it wasn't as good as what he's been doing lately, but it was like in hindsight it was a sign. I thought it was sell high. I don't trust this guy. He's already had TJ. TJ was still kind of like just a really bad omen sort of deal. It wasn't like everyone gets it every season sort of deal like we're dealing with these days. Um, which is a whole other conversation. But Zach Wheeler has, I just love how he's overcome that from that, and he's become essentially one of the most reliable pitchers in baseball. And I gotta say, he's almost underrated at this point, especially if you're playing in a wins league, especially if you like things like quality starts and strikeouts and ratios. Like, I mean, what does he do that's bad? I think that the Phillies. Remember when Bryce Harper did the stare down and single-handedly stared down the Braves to death in the playoffs. Like nobody would have at that point if you said the Philadelphia Phillies are going to win the World Series. Most people would. I think I would have loved to know the Vegas odds at the time because frankly, I remember it seemed like that was going to happen just based on what they had going on. Well, they have the same team. They have the same team now, except Harper's even more healthy. So yeah, I think Cy Young to Wheeler, who assuming he does the same things he did last year. Yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. I think the two names I have, one is my front runner, and then the other is a sleeper. But Wheeler has such a solid floor coming back now with the extension with the Phillies. There's stability there. Again, good organization. A lot with the quality start, the wins, the innings with Wheeler and the strikeouts. I went ahead and took Strider. I think we saw a lot of great upside last year. He's obviously the number one pitcher going in redraft for the most part, and number one pitcher going in dynasty. I think with the added curveball, if he can bring that in and actually use it properly, that's a really nice addition to the pitch mix. He should be the favorite for me. And I just want to throw out Tyler Glasnow's name. And at this point, I feel like it's almost like talking about Byron Buxton. Glasnow had 5 1/3 innings pitched in spring this week, and I watched a little bit of it. And Doc, it looked unbelievably filthy. It just made me think, can we get 160, 170 innings out of this guy? Because if we can get that, he may have a Corbin Burns Cy Young season just a few years back where Burns didn't put up the innings either, but had such incredible ratios and strikeouts that he won the award. Glasnow at 170 for me, I think probably wins the Cy Young. I just don't know that he can get, I don't know that he can get to 170.
If someone had a loaded Magnum, 44 Magnum,
To
if
win a
you
game or to win Cy Young?
and I don't want to intimidate our audience with my finger gun here. But if someone had a 44 Magnum and Dirty Harry came up to you with a 44 Magnum and said, "Hey, do you feel lucky, punk? Tyler Glasnow, 130 innings. He's doing that much or more. Do you feel lucky? Would you bet on it?"
No.
What's no? Actually, better question. What side will you bet on? That's actually the
I'm
crazier
taking
question.
I'm taking the under. I'm taking
Which,
the under.
yeah,
Sadly.
yeah. And hey, I love his hair. He's got a great flow. He's a great talent, more importantly, for fantasy. And there's some people will be like, you know what? I'll take him here and there. I'll put those roto ratios up. I just don't feel like I don't feel like we get a discount. I think
No, there's no
we're
discount.
drafting
Yeah.
him in fantasy leagues. I know this is like we're doing two things here, everyone. We're doing real life voting, what we think would happen, and also we're giving you some fantasy commentary. So the real life thing, yeah, I mean they're gonna love it. He could get I mean with these Dodgers, could he get 20 wins in 130 innings? I'd have to run the math on it, but I mean it's like that good of a team, or maybe. But frankly, for fantasy purposes, if I'm in head-to-head league, I'm going to need you in the playoffs. And if I'm
Yeah.
in a roto league, I kind of want you to have a full season.
You need the volume. Yeah. He's Glasnow is, and this is actually in the article that Doc referenced, that's coming out tomorrow for STS, but I wrote about the concept of evaluation on players. And part of my evaluation is the enjoyment of watching them, the excitement they produce. And when Glasnow pitches, there isn't many other pitchers I enjoy watching. I still remember a day that when I was living in LA watching him pitch at a random bar waiting for somebody, and I was just texting my friends in awe, just saying, how incredible it is that we get to watch Glasnow and to appreciate it because he's going to be hurt next week. And he again got hurt next week because it's Glasnow. But I'm just really excited to watch more appearances from him this year. And again, that spring 5 1/3, it's on Twitter. It's circulating. Go watch it. It
Yeah,
looked like pure domination.
Would love to see more of it, but just to bring us back, it's so funny. So like when someone's not hurt yet, like it feels like we're like almost swishing it on them. I'm like, no, 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 no. But we're being so realistic because a guy was in my DMs
Yeah.
last night. This guy, that sounds hilarious, dude. I feel like I give at least one homoerotic like catchphrase or like was a soundbite per episode. What's that
I was
say?
gonna say
I'm
reference though. Were you on your OnlyFans account in your
yeah.
DMs,
I'm
or were you on your
sorry. I'm married
Twitter?
to a anyway. I had a buddy, in my DMs asking me for advice on Buxton, and I'm like, dude, like he was asking me Kobe Mayo versus Buxton, which is actually interesting because I
Yeah.
feel it feels wrong, right, to go with the guy who's never played in the MLB yet. And I said to him, dude, the thing is, you're not that crazy because he wanted Mayo. And I said, we know what's going to happen. And I felt terrible saying that. Like I don't see the future and I don't want to root for it. And guess what? That night, Byron Buxton has back tightness and he's out for foreseeable future. It's like, dude, it's clockwork. Some of these guys are just those guys. But we got to keep moving on here. But do you have
Yeah,
any thoughts on
I
that?
was gonna add if you saw the news because yes, you're spot on. He's hurt, and I woke up to text because I drafted him and I had his back this year.
Hmm.
All right, let's fly through this. So we are now through NL MVP, we are through AL MVP, we are through NL Cy Young. What are we doing for AL Cy Young for you, Doc? Who is your 2024 AL Cy Young?
Well, because we're here in the war zone, baby. We're here in the war zone of guys blowing out their arms. Garrett Cole, we thought we could trust Garrett Cole. Evidently, we could not. And I'm gonna go on one of the more sturdy, less flamethrowery sort of dudes. The most control guy, the control wizard. He's got a cool hat probably at home, a little, like Mickey Mouse Fantasia hat. That's how I picture George Kirby. I'm going with George Kirby from the Seattle Mariners. Uh, you know, d- d- the team is run in such a weird way where I don't know if the bats can get him enough wins, but I know that if you can run your whip around a 1 point anything, 1.0 anything, I think this is a guy where we could actually be looking at a sub one whip as soon as this year. If the ratios are there, if the voters are starting to, consider other things, I think George Kirby could be an option as a Cy Young candidate. Especially, I mean, this happened to me last week when I was like, oh, what's the Cincinnati manager's name? His name's David Bell. Um, did the Seattle Mariners made the wild card last year? Did they not? Am I crazy? Oh
Oh,
man,
Doc.
I just put it on you. Yes, now you're the guy.
I don't think they did. I
I
want
think
to
they
say
did.
they missed it because the I want to say the Rangers took the last wild card spot and they were fighting with Mariners, Astros. Astros beat the Mariners, clinching the playoffs, and
No,
then the
what's the
Rangers
E? No, so they
clinching
didn't get it. They were that's what it was. Yeah, they just missed it. I don't think it was the
just
Rangers.
missed it.
It
Yeah,
was the Blue Jays. It was the Blue Jays that
Blue
got them.
Jays.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, it was very close. Anyway, so they're not that far off. Like they're a really weird team. They're always weird. They're just. I wish they would spend a little bit more. They got such a great farm system. We could do a whole podcast about that.
Well,
But
look at Kelnick's comments after
yeah,
the trade and the
what
GM's
did what
comments,
what
right? Like
well, what did he say? I missed those ones.
he just came out after the trade and said, you know, you have to think about the comments and the impact it had on the team when we're competing for the playoffs. You know, the GM coming out and talking about how like mathematically we need to win. I think it was like 83 games a season or something like that, right? Where like the analytics says that's where you need to be. So like we're going to do everything we can to win 83 games a season. And he just articulated it wrong. It was like we're going to try and be a competitive team every year. When the Brewers signed David Stearns to GM all these years ago, that was Stearns' message to the fan base. I'm going to try and give you consistency. You know, I'm not going to put all of our chips in and go for a title and then be bad for another 10 years. Like I'm going to do my best to make sure we're competitive every year. But Stearns didn't go as far as to say, "Hey, my analytic team says if we win 83 games every season, like we're good." And that was how it was articulated. And it also then, fell into the players because he had said in some regards, this is not quoted, but like, I would love to have the superstars or something like that, but we just don't. And again, go look up, I think it's Jerry
Mm.
Angelo's, if I'm correct, the GM, Jerry Angelo, maybe not. His comments, because Kelnick's take after being traded was spot on. It was a great reference to what the players had felt. And these smaller market teams, Seattle, Milwaukee, Kansas City, Minnesota, Detroit, like they are at a disadvantage because you have to play more analytical, organizational baseball and roster construction because the big guys are going to leave eventually unless you lock them up early.
Yeah, that's a doozy. I'm
Um,
not a Mariners fan, so yeah. Sorry, guys.
well, and I love the Kirby pick. I absolutely love George Kirby. I
Who
think the
you got?
control
Who
is
you got?
well. I stole yours, and I think we both would probably fall in this bag. For start, AL Cy Young 2024, I have Corbin Burns. I just think ballpark factor, contract year, pedigree, anger. Anger is big for me. He had a really down 2023, but him and Milwaukee were not on good terms after a ugly contract dispute and arbitration. And I think Corbin Burns comes out and absolutely dominates baseball this year. I think, again, the park factor is huge. The deeper left field walls in Baltimore compared to Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a very hitter friendly park. Baltimore is going to be able to subdue some of that power. Cut fastballs really nice. So that right field wall might be a bit of a problem at times, but I expect Burnsy to be back around a 2.5, 2.6 ERA, over 200 strikeouts, probably pushing 230, maybe even 240. 190 to 210 innings and 20 wins. I think it's a runaway, but if Burns gets hurt, I think it's a whole new classification because guys like Kirby can absolutely make that push. Contract year for Burns. I'm banking on it.
Yeah, no, man, that would be my. If you give me a blank slate, I think I probably would Corbin Burns first. It's funny because I was like, I'm like, yeah, he's great, he's good, but it's like a weird feeling because he was kind of stuck in Milwaukee. We didn't think he was going to
Yeah.
be there. I don't know, but again, I play in leagues with wins a lot of the time, right? And frankly, he's good for both quality starts and wins. And he's just that guy who's done it before. He'll do it again. And I guess here's the other thing with wins too. I feel like it's almost there is a baseball element to it where when there's an ace on the mound, the bats behind him feel good they feel good knowing that, or in front of them, whatever you want to talk, but they feel good knowing that. And frankly, it's like a yin and a yang. Sometimes there is a certain magic to scoring wins, and with a team like the Orioles, like if there's nights where their bats aren't clicking and Corbin Burns is out there just knocking them down, they feel inspired by that and they come alive. That's a win, and then they bring the win. So it's an interesting thing. And regardless, fantasy, from all you got to worry about is that these bats will be there many times for him. So yeah, I like Corbin Burns quite a bit. I think it's a fantastic pick.
Yeah, and I want to see them lock him up long term. I would love for Corbin Burns to be the ace of the Orioles as this young, rejuvenation starts in Baltimore. We'll see how new ownership treats that. But all right, Cy Youngs are done. We are on to Rookie of the Year. I think it's safe to say we probably have the same AL Rookie of the Year. You've been banging the drum for a while. I've been on and off. So who is going to be your AL Rookie of the Year, Doc?
So I've been blowing up this. Anyone following the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast? If we have any crossover listeners, the first time they called me by name, they said, Doc Eisenhower just took Wyatt Langford in the third round. He must be just messing with us. There's no way. Then I did it again. And then someone else, said it to me in the DMs. They said, "Hey, I think they're talking about you." At the end of the episode, click on Wyatt Langford, 53 minutes in. They're like, "There's this one guy in our mocks. He keeps taking Wyatt Langford third or fourth round. It's kind of like we want to see where other people will take him." But now, man, you take Wyatt Langford where you can. If you feel like there's anyone else on the board, sorry, if everyone on the board is not that exciting to you, or if they're all kind of the same thing, ask yourself how many of them can offer you first round upside. Wyatt Langford,
Well,
if there's going to be a Corbin Carroll kind of impact in their rookie year, it literally just happened. Who's it gonna? It's gonna be Wyatt Langford, and so he's my pick. He plays in a fantastic offense. I think if they can put. I'd love to see them get Jordan Montgomery again. I don't know how realistic that really is, but they can defend their World Series, man. And I mean, my backup was Evan Carter. My backup was Evan Carter because he's kind of doing the same things. He has less raw power than Langford, but these guys both have fantastic approaches. It's just almost unfair. So yeah, Wyatt Langford was also your pick, so I'll let you speak some words on him. But this is just like, what does he do? What does he do that's not? gonna play. He's got it all.
I agree with you, and I want to reference exactly what you just talked about, where you were taking him in the mocks. Okay, I got three names for you. I'm going to use outfielders. This is range 33 through. Now that I'm completely stalling us out, 40. Okay, overall, all players. This isn't just outfielders, but I'm going to use this as our reference point. Doesn't matter the league; it can be points, roto categories. I think for what Langford does, great for all of them. You have the option to take in the third round Michael Harris, Wyatt Langford, or Adolis Garcia. Who are you taking?
It's just OBP or BA.
Let's do OBP.
OBP, it's 100% White Langford. And that's the
Okay.
funny thing. So
Even
I will add with the CBS draft, they're usually BA.
okay.
Hmm.
If it's BA, are you more inclined to take Harris?
Hmm.
See, I'm still taking Wyatt.
That's dude, I can't let anyone have wide over me though. And that's exactly where I'm coming from with these moves.
Yeah.
Is like if I see here's the thing. Where I've taken Wyatt, even though it's been early, I believe that Harris has been gone. And I'm pretty confident Garcia has been gone as well. Like it's usually they go late 20s, early 30s, and I've been taking the earliest I took, earliest, is Wyatt is 35th, which is still very high. But
Okay.
it's like, but no, it's so funny, man. Like we're having the fact that we're having this conversation of a guy who's never played a major league at bat. It's like,
Yeah. Well, and the same
anyway.
conversations were being had, not I guess not the same conversations last year with Walker but Volpe, but they rose quite a bit. The next name on the list would be Randy Arozarena. So, you have two really floor profiles in Harris, Arozarena, and then you have the projectability of Garcia, who, has had Jorge Soler seasons and then has been an MVP in the playoffs. And then you have Langford, like you said, who's never played a pro pitch, right? But it's like, what do you want to take? I think Langford's probably a mix of Garcia and Harris. Would you agree? Like, kind of give you a little bit more
Hmm.
power than Harris, a little bit more speed than Garcia. Not going to give you the full average of Harris, but like, I love the package deal, and you get
Yeah.
that in Wyatt Langford.
It's tough for me this year with Langford over Harris just because Harris gives you like, he might give you literally 300. To project
Yeah,
that in a rookie, yeah, it's funny, man. If you don't, I know you're probably like me. You play mostly OBP or OPS, something like that. If you're strictly BA, you know, I mean, Michael Harris is kind of a lock for 290 or higher, and that's such a nice thing when he's giving you 2020. And frankly, he's still so young. He could give you 25, 25 kind of deal. And it's like if someone told me White Lake was going, you know, 25, 25, near 300 average in a BA league, and you're playing on the Braves. So it's like that's the tough one for me. But if you're in an OBP league, yeah, baby, give me Langford. And frankly, yeah, I don't think you would have to take Langford in the Michael Harris range. Someone will take him around 20, 25 right now. So
yeah, he'll go higher. I
yeah.
would agree with that. Just for reference point, and you're kind of captivating on your BA in a dynasty redraft, Kyle Schwarber in a 15 team fell to around 13 because of the BA aspect.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
outside the top 300
That's too
because
far for
people
me.
just were.
Yeah.
I mean, I took him there. I was like, are you kidding? I'll,
Yeah.
I'll figure this out somehow. But
That's
BA is
insane.
such a big difference
Hmm.
because it has such grave consequence, especially a Schwarber who's going to put up 500 at bats guaranteed, probably. That's going to continue to drive down your average. You've got to find that elsewhere, right? So you pair that with an Arias if you can and really
Yes.
start to build that. Yes, there are uses for our young Urias.
Dude, I used to be
All right, Doc.
so I used to be so out on her eyes. I've been taking them everywhere because I know that I like to be reckless, and I can
Well,
afford it
you can pair them up.
with
You
a
can pair them
burger.
up.
Give me a Jake burger and an Arias. We're
Yeah.
fine. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and yeah. Well, and we'll do an episode down the road on that because I really like pairing up profiles and giving you the median stat line and being
Hmm.
like, well, what do you think, right? Like Burger
Hmm.
and Arias or X and X, and you're like, well, definitely X and X, and it's like, actually, you're
Hmm.
wrong.
Hmm.
All right, Doc. We did AL Rookie of the Year. We both settled on Wyatt Langford. Let's transition to NL Rookie of the Year. Again, you can pick the guy I have. I like your
No,
name. Oh, but what do you got?
no, I refuse to pick your guy. I feel like I'm drunk on my own hype at this point. Like I'm hype. Like, what's going
I
on?
mean, this is crazy, but
Yeah.
if it happens, we gotta have him on the show. Okay, like let's agree to that. If this happens, we are going to find a way to get him on the show, and we'll
Well,
give him a shirt with your trademarked slogan.
yeah, do I have this? Okay, anyway, do I have a slogan? I think I got a slogan.
No,
Victor.
you definitely do. It's your your council concept.
Okay. Victor Scott II. VS2, the VS2 Entertainment Console.
Mm.
I didn't quite yet. Yeah, you said council. You must have a weird. You have a weird Milwaukee
I think
accent.
I've lost part of the. I think it's blended with my West Coast years, so now it just sounds ridiculous.
I thought you were talking about Craig Council. I didn't understand it,
Yeah,
but now I'm like, oh, he's talking. I know what he's
video
saying.
game
It's
council.
funny. I wasn't
You
even
know,
trying to.
it's a
Yeah, council.
council.
Yeah, dude. No.
Yeah, you're right. No, I
Hey,
do say it's strange.
hey, everyone at home. He's saying it weird. Just in case you were thinking it. Okay, VS2. This guy, I didn't quite finish my thought earlier when we were talking because I wanted to keep moving, but Churio and Holiday, how could I have them after him for just for 2024 purposes? I might even, I don't want to talk too much about that, but Holiday definitely have above VS2 long term. Chorio certainly has the potential, but for the short term, why do I have VS2 number three in for 2024 purposes? Well, I'm assuming kind of somewhat boldly that he's going to get the job out of opening day, or at the very least early on, because everything I've seen from this guy is unbelievable. I was watching the spring training stuff, and John Moe, the big Presidente of St. Louis, he was talking about him, and I was listening in the booth. The announcers were saying things like, "Oh, but John, we know that there's just no time for him right now. There's no space, and you gotta get him some seasoning." And John Moe, who is usually conservative, pushed back and said, well, I don't know about that. I've taken a lot of pressure from the clubhouse. He actually said the clubhouse. I actually didn't want to tweet that phrasing because I didn't want to get anyone in the clubhouse in trouble, like in some weird way, but like, or make it look bad if I have that kind of pull. I don't think so, but it's like it was a weird phrasing. He said the clubhouse is really pressuring him to make VS2 part of the opening day roster. And then he said he agreed. He said, I envision average power, league average power, which by the way is like 15 to 20 home runs, which is really cool. And so his floor here, like if you're giving him full or 400 to 500 plate appearances, like what's his floor? Is it 40 to 50 stolen bases?
I think that's fair. I think 40 to 50 is floor,
With
and
really elite defense, which when you're talking about
yeah.
rookie of the year, that's like Gold Glover kind of defense with rookie of the year. And so what it will come down to is his ratios, I think. We as fantasy players think of power, but I think the voters for rookie of the year would think ratios. How crazy am I?
If he makes the opening day roster, I think there's a very good shot he wins because we are more bullish on his power than a lot of people. Because a lot of people are reading profiles that were written 6 months ago, a year ago, before AFL. That pull side power in the AFL really showed when he can get into a ball and he can pull. He can definitely hit home runs. Not to say that I expect him taking pitchers dead center 10 to 15 times a year, but I think 20 home runs are absolutely in the tank. Rookie year, I'm a little questionable.
Yeah.
I think 10 to 12 with 70 home runs in his rookie season and in a full let's say 150
You just said
is
70
absolutely
home
doable.
runs, I think.
Sorry,
Yeah.
70 stolen bases. Yeah, he's Barry Bonds, everybody. We have the next megastar here. No, 70 stolen bases, which is to me a megastar status. If you can give me 10 to 12 home runs, 70 stolen bases, that's I've argued he could be a second round pick next year. But we got to
Uh,
see the average, right? It
yeah.
can't be 240. It can't be 250. 260 is like, hey, I'm good with that. If he comes out and hits 280, 12, and 70, we're talking about a second round pick next year.
We're talking about. Oh my gosh, that's the way we have to. That's the way I just realized. That's how we have to start comparing them to, because it's hard to compare them to like a Cheerio or a Holiday
Yeah.
almost, where they have
Where are
some
you
power.
drafting him? Yeah.
So I would actually compare him to Corbin Carroll,
Mm-hmm.
which makes way more
Yep.
sense. And so literally a faster, less power Corbin Carroll. So I think it's possible. I think it's possible that within the next year or two, at the very latest, whatever he gets full time would be.
Yeah.
I think you're looking at maybe a version of Corbin Carroll. in terms of like, his ratios could be the same, like a 270-ish, 350-ish kind of OBP, and BA was the former number. And then you're looking at I don't know, it's going to depend on how the Cardinals are doing. I think the Cardinals are underrated right now. I think people have really been fast and very maybe they're just excited to see this traditionally dominant team on the ropes, but I think there's been a rush to dismiss them. I think the Cardinals are going to come back. They have gold, they have Arenado. I think it's going to be an interesting year. Jordan Walker's coming into his own. Gorman, don't sleep on Gorman. I kind of like the Cardinals this year. By the way, Sonny Gray is looking like he's like that one thing, the one preseason injury that's actually looking optimistic. He actually looked like he might miss his opening day start, but he'll be back the next start. So,
Nice, just a skip.
hmm
Well, Doc, I'm glad you brought Carroll up because Richie and I actually had that same discussion this week. It was VS2 because it was one of my bold predictions. We try to do things a little bit differently, and we did, the predictions. We took out bold this year, but I said I think Scott can be a second round pick next year, and it's because of what you just said. It was like I see Corbin Carroll's profile, and we have to move numbers around, right? Like I don't expect Scott to have the RBIs or the home runs that Carroll does, but I expect more stolen bases. Carroll last year hit 285 with like 24, 25 home runs. Like, okay, so if Scott can hit 285, same on base percentage, 350 was right around Carroll, right? 350, 352 or three. Good with that. But that 70 stolen bases it can offset the home runs. And it's like, okay, if you can like mimic runs, awesome. So yeah, you're not going to be a top 4 pick, but you're absolutely going in the second round without question. Like if you could draft Jordan Alvarez and Victor Scott, that's start to your draft. You're already ahead of almost everybody other than the person that took Acuna and maybe Carroll and Witt. But like those are the outliers of like if you didn't fall top 4 picks next year and Scott turns into what we think he does, you're ahead of the curve immediately. And we just don't have anybody like Scott that can offset that speed without massive risk, right? Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neill Cruz, just some of the names that come to mind.
well,
Scott could be a huge player.
Estuary Ruiz is the other guy. Uh,
Yeah.
and, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and there's talk right now. So I've actually been, I used to hate this kind of idea, but I'm just pairing VS2 with Ruiz because it's so easy to do because they're both low
Yeah.
cost. And it's just like, dude, if this works out in roto leagues, like bye bye. Like I can pick statues. I can pick up a Vinny Pasquantino. I can pick a Freddie. Maybe Freddie's not such a statue anymore, but I can pick some guy who's not going to run, right? An Alonso or something. And it's just it's so nice, and I'm just going to win the category outright. The thing with Ruiz is, yeah, we don't know about his hit tool. It's funny, So Ruiz is 6 foot 6'1". He's something, but he's 160 or 170. He's a skinnier man. He's slender, just like Billy Hamilton. People like to kind of try to put VS2 in a box if they're going to be a critic, and there's things to criticize him about. I don't think it's his. I don't think it's it. I don't think you want to put him in those guys' box because he's 190. He's 5'11", 190, 5'10", 190,
I mean,
and he's
Asturi's
a different.
projected.
He's a more of a built human being.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bigger guy. Asturi fits the profile, right? Like
hmm
Asturi is more Juan Pierre
hmm
than he is Victor Scott, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just in today's game, if you're Asturi, you have to go out and steal 80 bases without question to
hmm
really give you that fantasy upside because his zips right now have him out projected OBP 316. It's not good. Average 249.
He
We'll
might
see.
he might not have a
Um,
starting job. There's actually talk about that
yes,
in
exactly. Yes.
Oakland. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the concern.
Mm.
All right, Doc. We love Victor Scott. I think what you said is very bold. I think it is actually realistic. We are going to be rooting all season for Victor Scott, and I really hope you're right. I hope he makes the opening day roster because honestly, I'm about excitement. I'm about marketing. I want to see him in that outfield. And Tommy Edmond has the injury. Not sure he'll be ready. So put in VS2.
And Newt Bar. So
Yeah, it's almost like they have had injury concerns in that outfield for the last 4 years, huh?
something like that.
Something like that. Okay, I'm picking Yamamoto. I cheaped out here. VS2, love it. I think there's opportunity. Churio, we talked about him a little bit. I just don't see it. I think Yamamoto is obviously at 25, 26 years old, the most decorated Japanese pitcher to come over since Otani. And Otani's the outlier because of the ability to hit. I think Yamamoto dominates. I think it takes him a little time out of the gate. You know, we saw in spring he gave up some runs the other day, didn't have the control. Give him about 3 to 4 weeks, so maybe a month to really settle in. I think by mid June, we're talking about a guy that's top 10. And we know the Dodgers are going to be careful with this rotation. They have a little bit of depth, even though a lot of that depth has gone under the knife in the last either month or 6 months. Kershaw comes back, presumably and hopefully midseason, but I think they will try and preserve him as he gets acclimated to the new rotation and the new way of pitching in Major League Baseball, which is not necessarily just once a week. And then next year, all things change. When Otani comes back, I think they go predominantly to a 6 man. But Yamamoto coming over, being on the Dodgers, if as long as he pitches a sub 7 ERA, I think it's a lock for NL Rookie of the Year, unless Victor Scott actually gets the playing time, and then I think we have a real competition.
Yeah, I mean, love Yamamoto. You have love Yams, as he hates to be called. Um, Man, yeah, no, it's very exciting. I think it's an almost like in dynasty leagues, by the way. Send out your offers to Yams because for Yams and his and from his GMs because I just there's actually people out there who are really starting to doubt him based on a couple of spring innings. So
Yeah,
please
yeah.
go ahead and try. You won't get him from me, but you can try from others.
I would love to see someone offer you a package for Yamamoto and Langford in one of our leagues, and
If someone sends me almost anything for Langford in a dynasty, it's like I gotta find. What can you give me your address? So mail a punch to your face.
all
So,
right, Doc. Let's finish out the show, and
do we
we
have
don't need
time
to
for this?
spend a whole lot of
Do
time
we
on
have
this.
time for this? We'll just go quick. We'll go quick.
Yeah, we're just gonna go quick. So
All
just give
right.
me when you're doing drafts, and again, you said it. Draft season's almost over. Dynasty draft season is definitely over. So we will save that for next year. But
Mhm.
when you're looking at your redraft leagues, how do you like to construct your roster via the draft? What's your approach?
Man, I almost feel like we have an advantage as deep dynasty guys because I think that's where you're going to get the upside. Maybe not in years past, by the way. This is still a new thing where you might be able to get the jump on your redrafters, and frankly, even if you have drafted already and you're listening to this, you
There is a waiver wire.
there's a waiver wire, and frankly, by now you might be on free agents. I don't know how your league operates, but yeah, I mean, there's guys like I made a whole list of prospects, and I know that I'm in leagues right now that a bunch of them did not get drafted. I gave you 60 names. I gave you 60 names for redraft. And here's the thing, like they're not going to cost you that much. Like even Wyatt Langford, like I said, I was taking heat for taking Wyatt Langford in the third or fourth round. Frank, what was it? Like, I think in TGFBI, like, what I get him? Like, people were getting him at 150, like, definitely past 100. People are scared. Redrafters aren't necessarily the same kind of guys or girls as the dynasty gurus. So let me just go over a couple of names here. So Langford's going to be going. Now he's definitely going top 50, top 100 guaranteed. Evan Carter, he's a known commodity. Victor Scott, honestly, somehow Victor Scott is still going at a pretty good deal. Not as good of a deal, but you can still get him. Like he's still, if you're playing with anyone who's paying attention to the dynasty circles, you're done. But if you're just playing with your
He's at the 380 range on Fantasy Pros for average calculation around different leagues. But like I said to you, Richie was building his
Mhm,
roadmap for a draft on Wednesday, and ESPN had him like 220. So I
mhm.
don't know what's going on if it's just the format that he's in that has him pushed so high. But you're right. If he's at 383 on Fantasy Pros, that's a hell of a value.
Dude, I'd take him top 200. I don't care. Like if I had to,
Hmm.
I'd take him more than I can kind of read a room usually, but yeah, I mean even sure you can get him a little bit later, Holiday. Then you start getting Colt Keith has like been weirdly discounted. Like he doesn't have a
Yeah.
guaranteed second base job. Kobe Mayo is probably getting a job. Graham Pauley has a job. Drew Thorpe will be in the Chicago White Sox rotation very soon. He should be their opening day starter. I know that's very bold, but Manzardo will be up soon. Skeens,
Well,
Miller,
wait, did you
Meadows.
see today that Garrett Crochet is locked in opening day? How crazy is that?
It's not surprising. I mean,
That's crazy.
it's sad. You know,
It's
hey,
crazy. I mean,
Garrett, Mr. Crochet, Crockett. I don't know how you want to say that, but
yeah, I'm pronouncing it crochet. I have no
yeah.
idea.
So just putting that out there that I hope the best for you and your family and your performance. But in general, we kind of just like, we were thinking maybe something different for the opening day starter, and the Chicago White Sox are in full on implosion rebuild. So Skeens, Miller, Meadows, Henry Davis, Kyle Harrison, Shanuel, Cowser, Shawver, Lawler. These are all guys. Tyler Black, Joe Lauder. Don't sleep on him. I'm just listing off a ton of names for you all at once. Jackson Merrill, I'm lower on him. He's better in BA leagues. Michael Bush, don't forget about him. Don't sleep. Um, there's a bunch of guys here. Heck, I'd even say a Jason Dominguez or Demelzy Marte who might come help you halfway through the season. I'm trying to be spammy right now, and I spoke very quickly intentionally because I'm trying to tell you you have an advantage. If you know these names, if you know that how good they're going to be most likely, take advantage of your redraft format if it has any kind of IL in the case of, Dominguez, or a Scherzer, or even a Kershaw or Robbie Ray. A little bit hesitant on DeGrom. But take advantage of your ILs or your NA slots. Go ahead and use your dynasty knowledge to don't get crazy with it. Don't build a dynasty squad in your redraft league. Rookies and young guys typically have a battle. There are clubhouse politics. Managers love bets. Don't go too crazy. But if a guy's been paid like Torrey or Keith, or they're so good, they're so freakish like Langford or Holiday, uh, you know, gamble a little bit, and frankly, even Mayo, gamble a little bit and understand that injuries do happen. And before you know it, if they're talented enough, the cream of the crop rises to the top.
Yeah, and I like what you have here. I'm just going to quote you. If you get on base, good things happen, right? That goes right to your OBP concept. And even in points leagues for redrafts, you're talking about guys that are getting on base. Stolen bases may not have the same value that home runs do, but stolen bases turn into doubles, doubles turn into runs. Good profiles turn into solid averages across the board per game, and then obviously transferable over two categories as well if it's a roto league. But I think you're correct with stashing some of these young guys, and I really try to remind people, why do we play fantasy baseball, especially redraft? We play to win. So you're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive, and you don't want to be the guy that has all the knowledge and has someone else go out and pick up the Victor Scott. And then you're stuck sitting there thinking, hey, that was my strategy the whole time. Now, Doc, when it comes to, say, top 10 picks, redraft, are you looking to build a very solid foundation, maybe sprinkled in with a riskier pick like Langford? Let's say industry standard risk is what I'm putting those quotes under. Or are you taking some shots in those first 10 rounds?
I mean, first 10 rounds, that's such like a wide range. I mean, the first
Well, let's
10
just say like Ellie De La Cruz and O'Neill
El,
Cruz, right? There's
El,
a lot of risk.
so I would say Ellie De La Cruz is priced out for me. No way. Absolutely
Okay.
not. I refuse to draft Ellie De La Cruz in his crazy first or second round expectations. Like, dude, he didn't do that well last year. He's having a pretty good spring. So is James Wood. James Wood is going to start the year in AAA, maybe, probably AAA.
Yeah.
But he also struggled at Double A last year, so maybe it's back to Double A. O'Neill Cruz is leading the league in home runs, and he was turning. It was such a small sample size, but it was at the major league level last year. He was taking walks. He was starting to show some signs. And the fact that that's starting to carry over into this spring, because I can put those two together now. It was last year was during the regular season. He played about 6 or 7 games or something like that. He was showing some signs. I believe in O'Neill Cruz more, and especially at cost, because I've
Yep.
gotten him at some crazy good values. I would take O'Neill Cruz top 50, 100%. This is a guy who can give you, in theory, like if someone said O'Neill Cruz is going 30, 20, 250 with a 320 OBP, I love OBP, so it kind of like bugs me a little bit, but it's like, dude, at pick 50, yeah, man, let's go. The 30-20 is hard to find. How good are the Pirates going to be? I don't know. They're kind of a weird team. I don't think they run that well, but like, they have some cool talent coming up.
Well, and again, cost, right? When you're really looking at cost. So we've kind of addressed top 10 rounds in just regards to minimizing that risk with Ellie. You look at O'Neill, I think the upside at that price point is there. you talked a little bit about stashing some of these younger rookies that are on the
But
way
you do
that'll
want
provide
vets.
value.
You do want vets. You do want a Goldschmidt, a Harper. You want some of these. You know, if you're gonna get a pitcher, get a Gallon or a Wheeler. Yeah, yeah. No, sorry. I should probably. I know you gave me these two specific guys. I went all focusing on them. I should say yes. If you're going to take the upside swings, please go ahead and get some proven guys because it's redrafts. You are trying to win this year. There is no next year.
Yeah. No, no, very good to finish that. And then I wanted you to just talk about a little bit on pitching, like your approach. You said it earlier. You're steering back a little bit from the top tier guys. It sounded like when you said that, and I was reading into it, that you're probably attacking more of the middle ground, looking at some of the higher upside plays and trying to build your redraft rosters with, more shots in the barrel. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, also two big things for redrafts. Wait on catcher. It's a really deep year for some reason. I don't know why. I had a two catcher league recently, and I waited. I punted the whole thing. I'm gonna fill up both my catcher spots off the waivers. And wait on relief pitchers unless the values staring you in the face. And also it depends on your league depth. So I was in a 20-man redraft recently, and my starting pitching wasn't turning out good because I was waiting, and everyone else seemed to want to go for them. And I said, go ahead. I don't like what's happening in the league right now, so I'll build my all-star bats. And so in that situation, because I was building my all-star bats, and I had a really sus start to like Chris Sale was my ace. I'm like, oh no, you know, it's not, you don't want that guy to be your ace.
It's
Yeah,
not good, but
no, but
it
I
could
love
be
the upside.
okay.
But no, but
Yeah, it's not
in that
good, but it could
situation
be
is
all
like
right.
you're like, okay, what do I do now? Now you're
Yeah.
going Evan Phillips and Craig Kimbrell. You know, this is a 20 team redraft, so it is deep. But frankly, it's like I think I think Phillips is going under his value right now for people are like, oh, he's not going to get all the saves. I'm like, it doesn't matter. They're going to get like 110 wins at least. So Evan Phillips is going to get you a lot of saves and fantastic ratios, which you do not want to underestimate. Like that's so nice to have, especially in Roto. And Craig Kimbrell, a risk in the ratios, but his contract plus the Orioles winning record that we all foresee means a lot of save opportunities. And they'll let him mess up a few times. And I think he'll be okay. Craig Kimbrell's going later than he should be, so I recommend him everywhere. But in general, yeah, in pitching, if you can wait on it, I've been lucky in every league other than that 20-man redraft league from like 2 days ago. These guys were good. The Dynasty Guru, they're sending their best. That was the Dynasty Guru league. Probably some Scout the Stat Line followers. Appreciate y'all. But yeah, other than that, man, I mean, I did another auction league on the weekend where I was just crushing mid to late round pitching. I think there is some great depth to be found there. Usually, if you're in your home league, if you're with people who aren't necessarily addicted to fantasy baseball like the rest of us, like us cool folks, you can get a Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray, like I said, he will be back sooner than later. Go for it. If you, frankly, I'm all about Graham Ashcraft. This guy is not for the faint of heart, but he's gonna give you. He goes deep. He already went deep into games last year. He will get wins on Cincinnati, although I seriously hope they stop getting injured. And
Yeah, dropping like flies.
yeah, and so it's a matter of like he's actually got like a Corbin Burns' profile. He can go triple digits, and he just needs to develop like a really good out pitch, which is easier said than done. And one last guy, Brady Singer. He was good with a
Yeah.
two pitch package. They said last year, hey buddy, how about you stop that and start adding more pitches? And he said, no, I'm good. And then he had actually a much worse year. And now he literally said in public, I'm tired of sucking. I started sucking, which was really a good motivator. So now he's added two more pitches, and we're seeing some good results in the spring. Point is, I mean, that's bottom of the barrel, as deeper leagues, but yeah, you can get some really fun plays in this middle area for pitching. And frankly,
Yeah, and
you don't want to waste a high pick. You need an ace. You got to take that chance sometimes, but please don't pass up on like a surefire bat.
yeah, and again, attacking that middle ground, right? Chris Sale at Fantasy Pros comes in at 130, 37th off the board for pitching. Verlander 131, 38, obviously waiting on that. Dropping down, Jordan Montgomery still unsigned, 45 overall, 158. Hunter Brown 153, looking for a bounce back. Nick Pavetta, who has some really nice stuff, plus numbers coming out of 183, 52 overall. Bryce Miller, 53 overall. Brian Wu, 54. Gavin Williams, elbow unknown, but trending in the right direction, 55. Pepe up 57. Some really nice names there. And you mentioned Ashcraft for his stuff. Plus, his slider comes in at 166, but it's probably a miscalculation with his cutter. You
Yes.
talked about how him and Burns have a profile, and Ashcraft's cutter is a plus pitch. So I think that's probably an issue with Stuff Plus because his slider, I don't even know if he technically, I think he does have a slider, but it's not
No, he has
166.
I don't know what that is. That's something.
Yeah,
Something's gone wrong.
but you're right. He has to either commit to his cutter being a cutter in his fastball essentially, or develop an out. And I think if he can, you're talking about Kyle
Hmm.
Bradish type explosion out of
Yeah.
Ashcraft because all of the other numbers are so good. He's just missing that one thing,
Well,
right?
he's a big boy too. He's like, he's like the 6'4" or something like that. 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". He's something in there. He's just a big chunky boy, like 250 pounds. He's just a big dude on the mound, and he can go so many. He goes deep into games. I think he had a complete game at least once last year. At the very least, he was getting near it. It's just yeah, when you see that out pitch, and it's like he'll go from like a serviceable quality start machine. He was really good to start the year,
And then really
and
bad.
then
Yeah.
really I owned him. So this is what happened for me,
Yeah.
everyone. And a dynasty too, so I held on longer than I should have. So had him for an awesome fun stretch. It went to complete chaos, terrible, awful times. I cut him eventually, like way in that. Then he became good down the stretch again. And so, yeah, he's still pretty young. Let's see what happens there. In general, though, yeah, man, it's just, I would say that the problem is that I feel like Justin Steele, Kyle Bradish, and Yuri Perez were like a tier, and now we just lost two of them, and we
We
already,
lost two of them.
and
Yep.
so and so Justin Steele, if Justin Steele can be your ace, honestly, don't be mad at that because he almost won the Cy Young last year. Logan Webb's another guy. If you can get it like at the end of all the aces going, scoop up Logan Webb. Like this,
Yep.
anyway, I can go on.
I agree with you. That's my ace tier too. Logan Webb and George Kirby are like the last
Hmm.
threshold where I'm like, okay, like I don't love it, but I'm very okay with it. And then you get into the Nolas, the Freeds, the Framber Valdez's, the Freddie Peraltas, where it's like even Blake Snell, where it's like, okay, this could go really well, or my season could already be over, because of where I chose to take them over, hitters on the board. But we could continue this conversation for hours, Doc. We have hit an hour and 30 minutes. It's a long one. This might be our longest one. Is there anything we should toss in before we wrap it for the night?
Matt Morris, 101 prospect analysis on scoutthestatline.com Tuesday.
It's going to be fun. I think, if I'm correct, we're the only two with top 100 breakdowns now. Is that right?
We're the only ones with breakdowns. We have no lives.
It's definitely consuming our lives. That's for sure. Yeah, check that out. That article is going to drop tomorrow. We are releasing the STS 2024. I'm going to call it the questionnaire that was sent out to all the staff members, kind of projecting expectations for 2024. A lot of minor league content in there. Some bold prediction from each of us. It's going to be a really fun article. We're expecting that to drop Wednesday of this week. That may get pushed just because a lot is going on right now. But look for that in the next couple. I would say look for that in the next week. We'll be promoting that heavily. The top 100, 101 write up will be out as well. Kind of let my grammar and spelling errors go. A lot of people have looked at it, so hopefully they've tightened that up for me, but definitely not my skill set. But thanks again, everyone. We will see you next Tuesday.
Over and out.